yeah, that's when I really got hooked. Now at that point, I was like, I want to do this. Like when I'm as a career, like I always wanted to do it. Like since that first episode of Raw, I was like, okay, I want to be in WWE. But it never really seemed real. Like how do I get to WWE? You know. But when I
Mm-hmm.
saw that there were like indies, like when I saw Ring of Honor and like I saw these guys who aren't on TV, but they're at these, smaller shows, but, they still have a following. I was like, okay, so this has to be the step before WWE.
Yeah, without a doubt. I love that. And so, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you are. And back in my day, we had the VHSs and the DVDs and, trying to buy as much as you can just to absorb as much wrestling as you can. And I love that now that you're, in the age we are now, like I always say, if I was growing up right now, I probably wouldn't have any friends because I wouldn't leave the house. I would just constantly watch wrestling because that's all I loved when I was a kid, that I had to wait every week or rewatch the tapes that I already had, and just consume wrestling that way. But right now, like literally every second, I mean, I've done it multiple times where I've had 3 different screens going and they're all wrestling. Like, it's
Yeah.
not good because you're not fully consuming the match the way you probably need to. But,
Yeah.
if you love wrestling that much, like live wrestling, maybe something happened earlier that day, maybe in like Japan, or something that you missed like the day before, you can watch all of them at the same time. And, you're consuming as much as you can and catching the highlights as much as you can.
Yeah, there's so much wrestling today. It's crazy. It's so
Hmm.
hard to keep up. It's so hard to keep up. Yeah, there's a ton of wrestling. Usually, I get most of my wrestling consumption in like when I'm on the road, like to a show, like when I'm on the road for some hours. That's when I'm,
Mm,
checking out Wrestle Kingdom and, like seeing the stuff that, I see clips of on Instagram, but I never get to fully consume and enjoy.
right. So, I mean, kind of tell us, how is the Oklahoma wrestling scene? Because I know you're in the Tulsa area,
Yeah.
but obviously Oklahoma's a bigger state. Is it roughly the same as the North Texas scene, or have you worked much in Texas, or I guess walk us
I've
through
been
that?
getting my feet wet in Texas
Okay.
recently more than ever. Before it was just every now and then, like whenever I got an opportunity or had a seminar. But this past month, in January, I actually was in Texas every single weekend of the month,
Nice.
and I made them about like 4 or 5 debuts last month, which was crazy. So I was up at NPX, I was up at Texas Contender Series, just yeah, and definitely it was definitely fun, and I would say that Texas is similar in some ways to Oklahoma, but still very different. Oklahoma wrestling scene is it reminds me, it's very old school. It's very old school, like it's not anything like the Northeast. Like the fans, they appreciate the simpler stuff. They appreciate a little more of the comedic. They appreciate the slow paced, kind of like the TV style, I'd say.
Mm.
Um, you can have like a super intense, fast paced match, in Oklahoma, and it may or may not get the reaction you're looking for, just because it just be like just the wrong crowd.
Right.
As far as kind of like the way that the style and feel is down there. But as for the scene, I think there's a ton of new talent coming up. A lot of us young guys, I said that the young guys, but I'm gonna include myself because I'm definitely a young guy. A lot of us young guys, there's like a new like spark. I feel like a lot of hungry guys, a lot of guys wanting to travel. There's like
Hmm.
there's like this stigma in Oklahoma where um, it's easy to get stuck. It's easy to have all the talent in the world, but just not travel enough, not get out there enough. Because unfortunately, no one's no one's looking for the next Kenny Omega, the next Shawn Michaels in Oklahoma.
Right.
So and I honestly think that's anywhere, I
True.
think that
Yeah.
you have to get in front of as many people as possible in today's day and age in wrestling because there's just so much wrestling, so it's easy to be forgotten, you know.
I love that you have that mindset too, because I've heard that from so many people that a lot of, younger talent, whether it be guy, girl, everything in between, doesn't get themselves out there enough and doesn't really, go out and try to contact other people like, hey, are you guys needing anybody? Or, I have available dates, what is y'all schedule looking like? Things like that. And, as much as people will put on their social media that you have these dates and these dates available and you're working these dates, like, you've got to make the effort as well to reach out to these promoters and say, hey, I'd love to come travel to you guys, get some work in. And like you said, work with other people and be in front of other crowds, because you can't grow and you can't get better being in front of the same crowd, working with the same people over and over and over again.
For sure. Like, even no matter how good they are, no matter how much chemistry you guys have, like, I think that not even just in wrestling, but in life, real growth comes from just being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like every bit of progress I've made and so far my journey has just been from being in incredibly uncomfortable positions and, things I felt like I wasn't ready for. But, yeah, man, I think the scene, I like the scene in Oklahoma. I think that, that stigma is changing slowly. There's a lot of young, like, guys younger than me, a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-olds, like, getting into it. I'm 23. Yeah, exactly. And all these guys are hungry. And, I think there's a lot more people are starting to get the urge to want to travel and to want to, to really want it. There's a lot of guys that want it, but there's not a lot of guys that want it,
Right.
And I don't think that's just in Oklahoma. I think that's in pro wrestling in general. And nothing is guaranteed, like the top spot is, not everyone can be a John Cena. Not everyone can be a Stone Cold Steve Austin, but if you work hard and if you put in the work, you will succeed. And again, that's not a wrestling thing, that's a life thing. It may not be the way that, you envision, like a billionaire, but, you will succeed and hard work pays off. Like, so I think
like Macho Man.
Yeah.
Like Macho Man says, cream always rises to the top.
Oh, yes, sir. Gotta love him.
Now, who are some veterans that you kind of talk to when you want to kind of pick brains or have them watch your match or just talk about, life, pro wrestling, all the above?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of vets in Oklahoma that have given me great advice. Mr. Nasty, if you're familiar with him, he is probably my favorite wrestler in Oklahoma. I've gotten some great advice from him. I've gotten some great advice from Merck Grambell. I've got some great advice from Alex Royal, Justin Lee, Tim Rockwell. There's a lot of guys in Oklahoma. I try to pick everybody's brain, even if it's bad advice. I don't try to. I take everything with a grain of salt, of course, but I'm a firm believer in anybody can teach you anything. Even if it's what not to do. Everybody can teach you something. So I try to get as much feedback as possible. Yeah, there's a lot of guys. There's a bunch of guys who I try to pick the brain of. Luke Langley, that guy has a ton of knowledge. Yeah, and the list can go on and on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad there's so many people that you are able to reach out to and talk to, because I know there's some people, not that they're scared, but it's, I guess the same reason they don't really travel, but they have this mindset of, well, I'm good. I don't need to, go talk to this person. Or if they have something they want to, talk to me about, they'll come talk to me or find me. And it's like, no, you got to reach out and really be like, hey, if you got a second, can you watch this match? Or, I've got this kind of question when it comes to, pro wrestling and just life in general. So I like that you
Yeah,
have those
for
people
sure.
that you can talk to. Yeah.
It can get scary, like, especially when there's like people that you grew up watching, like D'Lo Brown gave me some great feedback after a match, and it really like changed my perspective on just the way I wrestle. And EC3 as well.
Mm.
I'm fortunate enough to have gone to have a couple conversations with him, and times I've met him through seminars, and yeah, he's given me some incredible advice. So yeah, there's so much. I feel like I've heard someone say, I can't remember who exactly said it, but I remember hearing that, everything, all the advice you get in wrestling and, everything you learn is like, they're like tools in a toolbox, and eventually you just add, to that, and you can use them all for different scenarios. And I believe that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I fully believe that too. And again, like you said that earlier, I mean, that's just about life too.
Life and wrestling, so many parallels, right?
I always say everything comes back to wrestling, but I've been a fan since I was a kid. So for me, everything does come back to wrestling. But you can
Yeah,
easily, I think, make a parallel to a lot of things in life to pro wrestling, and I just people don't know where to connect it. And you just, if you're a fan for life, you know exactly where the parallels between life and everything kind of go together.
exactly.
Now, when it comes to creating a character and a gimmick, like it is, a lot of people can go through different incarnations or different ideas that they think is going to work and not work. Where did you come up with the Cappuccino Jones gimmick and
Oh
the way
man,
you
yeah,
kind of present yourself?
the famous question. So the answer always shocks people. When I was in high school, at this point, I'm like dead set on I'm gonna be a pro wrestler. Like this is,
Mm-hmm.
it's happening no matter what. I remember one day, I'm about to go to class and or I'm about to go to school, and I'm watching Jimmy Neutron at home. Yeah, right. Interesting enough, I'm watching Jimmy Neutron at home, just kind of just on in the background. I'm on my phone, and then I hear the name like just in the background, Cappuccino Jones, and yeah, I like raised an eyebrow, and I was like, huh, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then like for like a week, it was just in my head like Cappuccino Jones, man, that's a cool name, and I was like, man, I was like struggling. I had no idea what my name would be, any ideas for a character, like, but I knew I just wanted to wrestle. And I was actually like not even wanting to be like so to say a character. I was like wanting to be like a Bryan Danielson, one of those like that's how I envisioned myself when I was in my big, indie wrestling phase and wanting to be, But yeah, so I heard the name Cappuccino Jones and I was kinda like, you know what? Let's run with it. That sounds cool. I think that's gonna be my wrestling name. And by the time I started training, like I was just like, my trainer would ask me, and people would ask me like, "Do you have a gimmick or anything?" I'd be like, "Cappuccino Jones." Like, they're like, whoa, and like the name always gets good feedback. So I was like, all right, let's run with it. And crazy enough, at first I didn't even want to be like the coffee guy. I just wanted to have the name Cappuccino.
Uh-huh.
I would say like how Orange Cassidy is now. He's not like the orange guy, doesn't come out with oranges. But my name is Cappuccino Jones, and I just figured like why not be professional wrestling's caffeine,
Right.
Why
No, I
not
love
knock
that.
people out with a shot of espresso?
Or hit him with the macchiato driver.
Yeah, the macchiato driver, yeah. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite brews.
Now, what's so funny is that I never thought about it until I was doing the research on you. Nobody really does a coffee gimmick, and it makes no sense to me. Like, I know Rarefied Air, he did. I mean, he has his own coffee, but it wasn't his gimmick. It was just like a part of things that he would be either at a coffee shop or whatever. So I am shocked that no one else has come up with being the coffee guy, because coffee and everything go hand in hand as well. and the